Hi, my name is Charlie Red. If you are looking to write a novel or if you are in the early stages of writing one, this video is for you. The content today will come in two sections. Firstly, I'll cover all the tips and advice that I had before I started to write my book. In the second section, I will try to link that advice to the actual experiences I had in putting together my first novel entitled Unscrupulous. The first thing that I would say is that what you're going to experience this process is your journey. It's your special private journey, and you will be allowed to enhance your creativity like nothing else you've ever done in your life. As we get older, we experience fewer and fewer wow moments. We've done most things already, but trust me, when you start to write a book, you settle down and you enter the creative mind, you guys are in for an absolute treat. Prior to any big project such as this, we are going to do our research. We are going to do some work to decide how we're going to go about it. Prior to starting my book, I did a lot of research and I found 7 tips that I felt really helped me. One by one, I'm going to go through those pieces of advice and I'm going to explain to you precisely what they are. Number 1 has to be a positive, engaging start to your story. After the reader has read page 1, we want that person to be eager to turn over to page 2. A fast gripping start will get the reader into the journey. Number 2, we need to world build. We need to create in the reader's mind exactly the environment, the place, the setting for where your story is happening, so that the characters that are existed in that world seem real and seem to have a place in the mind of the person picking up the words off the page. Number 3, it's very important to have interesting characters. Characters that are not one-dimensional. Characters that have got flaws. And you need to create in the mind of the reader precisely the motives of these characters, what makes them tick, what their end goal is, and what their relationships are with each other. Number 4, the reader wants to enjoy your book. They want to enjoy the journey that you are taking them on, and they will love and appreciate twists. Often the twists can't be seen coming. Sometimes the reader may feel that the twist was seen coming, but that's okay. That's okay if they predict that. As long as you justify it and as long as you make it contextual to the story and the narrative that you are creating within your book. Number 5, it's important to create narrative tension. We want the reader to be in this journey. We want this reader to be able to understand precisely what the characters are thinking. And if you can build towards a point where narrative tension is created, it means that your reader is totally on board with this book. They are totally on board with the story, and they care about the characters, and they care about what's going to happen to them and how the book may come to its conclusion. Number 6 is a topic that not every writer puts into their stories. I chose to do it because I felt that it was needed. It created the dark black comedy culture of what I'm trying to put together. But where possible, I would endeavour to put some humour into your story. Be brave. Look to create light-hearted moments, funny content, be it sarcasm, be it dry humour, be it black comedy. If it's funny, the reader will appreciate it and the reader will enjoy it. Number 7, I'd want to give your story a powerful ending. If we've taken the reader through 300 or 400 pages of our story and the journey is twisted and the characters have been through a lot of experiences, we need to have a powerful conclusion to it. So when they put the book down, for the next few days, they are still in the moment. They are still living the lives of those characters because the story has stayed with them. Before we start to write, we need to decide whether or not we want to make a plan. For me personally, planning is essential. I could not hit the keyboard without having some form of direction in my mind as to where I'm going to take the story. That said, there are a lot of very gifted storytellers that do not need a plan. I believe Stephen King can sit at a keyboard on his laptop and just make it up as he goes along. Wow. Although you may set out with a very clear plan, do not be surprised if during the actual process of writing you make a lot of changes, you make a lot of adjustments on the hoof. Ideas that come to you, inspirational, you put it in there, you didn't see it coming when you got out of bed that morning, but you run with it, and by the time you finish your book, you're glad you did. I want to bring to your attention also a webpage that you could access through YouTube that is a masterclass in writing by author Neil Gaiman. Now, Neil Gaiman's style of writing, his style of books, they do not interest me. I've never read a Neil Gaiman book, but when I started to research online for my particular book and getting ideas together from experienced people, Neil Gaiman has put together what he's called Neil Gaiman's Masterclass. Now, you can watch this via YouTube, and I found it very, very good. He goes through all aspects of how he creates a story, where he goes to write his story, and he explains in fantastic detail just what he puts into the process of deciding where he's going to go. He does not sit at a keyboard and just wing it. That guy has a lot of planning behind everything he types. Then you come to the matter of deciding when and where to write. A lot of this will probably come via trial and error. You'll give it a go in the morning, maybe you'll give it a go in an evening, you've got your weekends. If you're retired, if you've got a lot of time, you can decide when how you structure your week. But what I would suggest you do is, and learn from a mistake I feel I made on this, just try and make sure your mind feels fresh. If you sit at a keyboard and try to write something, when you're feeling a little bit weary, when you're not feeling 100%, the chances are that what you put down will either end up being deleted or end up being heavily edited. So please give some thought as to what time of day and how you wish to go about the process of writing. I mentioned the author Neil Gaiman before. Neil Gaiman disappears to the bottom of his garden in like a little glass room he's got, sort of hidden away, surrounded by shrubbery and trees and flowers. And he just ferrets himself in there, and he gets his head into his book. By contrast, Stephen King, I believe, gets up early in the morning and he writes in the pitch black dark. He sits in a room with blackout blinds, and the only thing that illuminates what he's doing is the light that emanates from his keyboard. So he goes to a very dark place, but you've got to find what works for you. I find that weekends, I struggle to come home from work and get into my story. I find I make mistakes. I think I've done good content, and then I revisit it the following day and I'm really disappointed. So through trial and error, I've discovered that the best way for me is to feel fully rested. And also, as much as it might seem a little bit strange, I always keep well hydrated. Plenty of water, it fights weariness, keeps the mind alert. So I've always got this by the side of my laptop. You can come across a lot of people on YouTube videos very similar to this one, and at some point in their narrative, in their dialogue, they are trying to sell their book. They are trying to talk about their own book, publicize it. I haven't put this together for the purpose of doing that. I have written a novel. I've written 2 books of short stories, all 3 of which will be published later this year. For me, it's a very, very personal thing. If anybody reads the books, no problem. I enjoy friends, family, people I know, people I can bang some promotional through social media. But the reason I've done this whole project is for my mental well-being. I like to try new things. I like to come out of my comfort zone and do something I've not done before. I'm now 55 years of age. I started writing my first book when I was 52, and it came on a complete whim. I haven't done any creative writing since I was at school. I don't especially believe I'm remarkably gifted at it. It's something I've enjoyed doing, but I have found videos on YouTube, they were a help. If I sat on the iPad, watched 3 or 4 videos by people who are experienced, maybe not successful authors, but experienced, they've had a go, you'll learn something from every video you watch. You'll get a little tip on something from somebody that you'll just put in your bank and you'll remember. And once you've done maybe half a dozen videos, watched different documentary evidence from other writers, you'll sit down and you'll feel more equipped. You will feel more prepared. And don't forget what I said. This is a wow moment for you guys. This is an adventure. This is going to your creative brain, a place that's a wonderful place to go. I mentioned earlier an author by the name of Neil Gaiman. He's got a very distinctive style of writing, a dark, a creative, from other worlds. It's not a genre of writing that I've got any interest in reading, but when I was researching online before I started writing my book, I came across Neil Gaiman's masterclass, The Art of Writing. It's really, really good. He goes through all aspects of the process, from planning, a good start to your story, world building, and this guy is a multi-published author. This guy has got an audio input on his video that is very easy to interpret. It's very easy to latch into. There's also a guy called Jed Hearn, an Australian author. I don't think he's particularly big selling, but he's done also a video on YouTube where he relates to how he encompassed all of Neil Gaiman's ideas and he put them into practice over a 7-day period. So I cannot do this video without mentioning how important Neil Gaiman's masterclass could be for you, how good it was for me. And if you watch the additional video by Jed Hearn, you can find it through YouTube. It's well worth a watch. So now I'd like to share with you a little bit of my journey. I wrote creative stories in school. I used to enjoy doing creative stories in school. I don't think my grammar was very good as a kid. I couldn't spell very well. In my adult life, I've not read especially a great deal. I've picked up books on holiday, but I've always had a natural interest in being creative, storytelling. So in the summer of 2022, my family and I were going on a holiday to the Highlands of Scotland. So we arrived in Glasgow and I didn't have a book to read on the holiday. So I called into a bookstore, centre of Glasgow city, and I found a book by a comedian, my favourite comedian, Kevin Bridges, Scottish guy. And he's just written his first novel, which was entitled The Black Dog. And it was just released that day in hardback. So I picked a copy up off the shelf, and the lady in the store said that Kevin was in the store not 30 minutes before doing some signings and signed a few copies. So if I bought a copy of the story, a copy of the book, I would get a signed copy. So it felt like the natural thing to pick it up and pay for it because I really like Kevin Bridges, the comedian. So I next found myself northern Highlands of Scotland, the middle of nowhere, very peaceful, surrounded by Highland cows. And I picked the book up and I started to read it. I thought it was okay. I thought the book was okay. I think my expectations were that it would be quite a funny book, a comedy just like Kevin himself. But it was quite a dark story, and whilst it was well written, I just didn't really think it delivered for me personally. But it's whilst I sat there in the middle of nowhere, just thinking about this, that I decided that maybe at the age I was, it would not be a bad idea, maybe to give a go to writing. So I've got a busy life. I've got a full-time job. I'm a careers advisor. I've got 2 teenage children. Life back at home is busy. Ideas you can have while sat in a field in Scotland, don't always transmit to reality when you get back home. However, I arrived back home in Lancashire. I sat in my garden and I decided to just do a rough sketch on some paper of what my story could look like. And I've had a story in my head for over a decade, and it's a story that I had no issue or no problem unfolding, being the storyteller. I actually knew the last line of my book before I'd even written the first sentence. So I knew where the story was going, and at no point in the journey have I come across any what people call writer's block. I've literally just tried to plan my time, tried to plan my weeks around designated times when I know I can sit down, I can have a bit of me time, and I can just go into my creative mind. And that is, as I said before, that is a wonderful place to be. Wow moments come so few and far between when you're in your mid-50s. You've been places, you've done things, you know your limits, you know your expectations, you know what you're capable of. But occasionally in life, you can come across doing something and you think, that's going to be a new experience. That's going to be out of my comfort zone, and that's going to be something that might really enrich me. So the positives of this have been absolutely massive. As I said before, I've got no ego about writing a book. I don't particularly think I'm anything special at all. But what I've done is mine, and what I've done is for me. And also, when I'm gone, what do I leave behind? I've had 2 children. I've been a photographer for quite a few years. I've done lots of different projects photography-wise. So I'll leave 2 children. I'll leave a bunch of photographs that maybe a few people will look at. But when you write a book, you are leaving something behind that is going to be here in 100 years. And what I'd say to you now is that if you came home from work this evening and a relative called by and said, "Oh, I've got this book that your great uncle Albert wrote back in 1763. Do you want to read it?" the chances are you're going to snatch it off and you're going to say, yeah, if that guy was related to me and he wrote a book hundreds of years ago, I absolutely want to read it. So for me, the 3 books I've read, sure, I'd like people to, have a look at it. I'd like the numbers to be reasonable, people to pick it up and go through it. But that said, I'm not getting carried away. I've no ego about this. If it's written by no more than the people I know and a few other people that pick it up off the Kindle site, that's fine. I'm not doing this video for the purpose of trying to sell books. This is around sharing the journey and hoping that other people who are online, as I was, looking at YouTube videos, deciding how they're going to go about this process and what they're going to do to put their story together. Maybe just watching this video today has given them a few tips, even if it's only 1 or 2, just some insight into how they're going to go about making the most and enjoying their adventure. I know a lot of people who have lives as busy as mine, more busy than mine. But as we go through our adult life, we decide how we're going to structure our life and how we're going to balance work and family and me time. I've been quite rigid on the way I've gone about it. I've always had a job that I've enjoyed because I don't want to get out of bed in the morning and go and do something that I find, irritating. You spend 8 hours at work. If you've not had a good time, you're not going to sleep very well. So, 8 hours sleep is going to come a lot easier if you have a job that you quite enjoy. So when it comes to my me time or what I do, I like to spend time with my family. I like to spend time with my daughters. I'm not particularly good at anything in life, but I think I've been a pretty good dad. But I enjoy exercise. I do a lot of yoga, a bit of yoga. Read a little bit, watch quite a bit of Netflix, find Netflix good escape. But writing has been a great escape for me. And it's become my hobby. And when you've got 2 children in university and you've maybe not got the money that you had when you didn't before you had kids, finding a hobby that is not expensive is a really good thing to do. I know a few folk who play golf, and they don't play golf well. They play golf badly. But to play golf badly, you need all the gear. You need all the clubs, and you need a golf membership and subscriptions, and you need golf balls if you keep losing them, and you got to dress in some kind of mad costume to go and play golf. That's not for me. Writing is a laptop, it's a Word document, it's Microsoft Word on your computer, and that's it. So 52 years of age, it's been a big win for me. I started writing my novel Unscrupulous. It filled winter time when it wasn't so nice outside. I live in the northwest of England, Lancashire. It's quite nice in summer as it is now, but winters are pretty dark and cold. So it was a good thing to do during those times. It's taken me about 2.5 years to write the book, and that's not because it's a massive piece of work. It's just I've got to fit it into everything else that I do. In total, I did 10 edits of the story. I wrote 1 edit, and the advice I got on this was quite an interesting thing to share. Wrote the book, did the first edit. Advice then was to go back to the beginning of the story and edit it again. So I did, and I made quite a few changes. It then said, edit it again. And I thought, I'm not going to change anything. I've done it massively in the last edit. Anyway, on that next edit, I made a lot of changes, and I was quite surprised just how many alterations, additions, other things that you see. Your creativity kicks in. You're doing things that you're absolutely loving. This is what I'm talking about when you enter a phase of your life when you are going to get a wow moment, because nothing you've done will mirror this. So 10 edits later, I'm looking at something that I think is almost finished. In between doing those edits, I started writing a couple of short stories, and I found that I really enjoyed the genre of the short story. Quick, fast-paced, page-turning story. It's got to have a twist. It's got to have a twist hopefully the reader doesn't see coming, and it's got to have an explosive conclusion as well. So all I can say is I have loved every minute of this adventure. I think I will write to some degree for the rest of my life. There's never once have I lost a love for it. I've never hit the wall. I've never sort of put the laptop away annoyed, or it's been a complete pleasure. I've never had whatever they call writer's block. I guess it is what it says in the tin. I guess it is what it says in the tin. But I've never suffered with that. I'm gonna put the studio back together again in a minute. Sorry about that. But to conclude, 3 years in on this process, 55 years of age, I'm going to be writing until they put me in my box, I think. If there's one feature or one element of all this that I did find probably the least enjoyable, it's come to the point where you have to do a lot of editing, changing words, changing sentences, improving grammar, looking to make the line or the paragraph make a little bit more sense. And it's a lot of fun to be able to doing it, but it can also be quite a slow process. But comfortably, the worst part of the whole thing is trying to find mistakes in your story. Trying to find typos, spelling mistakes. I know you can spell check, but sometimes you've got the American spelling or the English spelling and they don't always pick it up. But finding simple grammatical mistakes. I've learned a lot with this. A guy that knows a lot more than I do has said that when we read a paragraph of text, because we're used to reading and because we kind of anticipate what words follow, to put a sentence together, we sometimes misread a word. So if a sentence has got the word then, T-H-E-N, typed, but you actually meant to say than, T-H-A-N, when you read it quickly, you won't spot the mistake, you won't spot it. I thought I would. I thought I won't make that mistake, I'll be fine. I'd made that mistake a lot. So when you put together a piece of work, my novel is 132,000 words. One of my books of short stories is about 100,000. The other short story book is about 70. That's a lot of text. That's a lot of reading. That's a lot of proofreading. Unscrupulous, my story. I wrote it. I read it. Found mistakes. I gave a few other people to read it just to see if they could spot any errors. They came back, yeah, a few here, a few there. So by the time I'd corrected all that, I truly believed I was in a position where this book is ready to go, this book is done. So I printed it out, I had a quick look through it, but then just thumbing my way through the pages, lo and behold, I found 3 mistakes. And I was shocked to find 1, but I found 3 just by turning to various pages. So at that point, I probably did feel a little bit despondent. I've said it's been a great fun process. Unquestionably it has been, but not everything's a fairy tale. That was the one part of this whole thing that I did find a little bit frustrating. So I'm not at a point now where I've got somebody who has promised me that they're going to go through the last edit of what I've produced very, very, very slowly and try to isolate any words that are incorrect. I believe if you put it through an audio player and you get software to put a PDF document through an audio player, and you sit in the room and you listen to the story being read out loud, you can spot the mistakes a lot easier because you're listening. So maybe that's a good piece of advice. I haven't done that yet. Maybe I will do that just before it goes to the publisher, because I don't want there to be a book on somebody's shelf for years and years to come, and you look at the book and all I know is there's 2 mistakes on page 103 and there's another mistake on page 265. That would be really annoying. So I would want to highlight that as being something, as a pitfall and something I definitely did not see coming. So if you're watching this and you've not started your novel yet and you're contemplating opening a file on your Word document and calling it something and setting off, I guess at that point it can look a bit daunting. You can think, where am I going? Where am I going to go with this? Am I biting off too much that I can cope with? Is it more than I can deal with? A lot of advice online that I read and I've tried to go with and I've followed, and it's absolutely spot on. Is just write. Just open a document, create a prologue, create an opening page, try to make it engaging, try to make it so the reader gets to the end of that page and says, I want to turn over, I want to find out more. So that's the way, that's the advice I would set out. After doing a couple of edits, you could be bored with it. You can be looking at the thing and thinking, I've read it now, I've read it twice, 2 or 3 times. I know it off by heart. At that point, another bit of advice I got was just put the book away. Put the book away for like 2 or 3 weeks. Do not look at any of it for 2 or 3 weeks. The reason being, you need to refresh your mind, you need fresh eyes, so that when you look at it again, obviously you know the story, you know everything, but it's got fresh eyes. You're not reading the words off the page because you kind of know which word's coming next. You kind of give yourself a little bit of a break, and I found that very, very helpful. And I've seen videos by people who are successful authors who've said the very same, so I'd go with that. If you try and rush this, it will not work. You want to look at this as being a project you want to finish over maybe 6 months, 12 months, maybe even more. It took me a long time to finish this, but I have produced 3 books in that time. But I've not rushed anything, and I've not felt under any pressure. I've not crammed anything. It's been a complete and utter pleasure. Obviously, if you have spent a significant amount of your time putting a story together, and you've been living that journey, you've been living the lives of those characters, you've been knitting this thing together, you've been putting red herrings in, you've been justifying actions, you've been creating characters, you've been creating dialogue, you have created something that is incredible. But there's got to come a time when somebody else has to read it, and that can feel a little bit scary. We can get a bit sensitive, I think, about any criticisms. We might look a bit and think, is it any good? Self-doubt creeps in. You wonder whether or not he was even bothered starting the whole thing. You've got to be brave. You've got to be brave. You've got to look at the finished or the manuscript you've put together, and it may not be complete, but you're getting to the point where you feel it is. You've got to get some feedback. You've got to get some test readers to go through it, and you've got to tell them that you want the truth. You do not want plaudits. You do not want them just to say, oh yeah, it was really good, I really liked it, that character was really funny, or that I didn't see that twist coming. Plaudits are great, and you'll feel the love. You will feel a glow inside when somebody says something nice about your book. However, what you really need is constructive criticisms. You need people who are going to be honest with you. I wouldn't ask your best friend. I wouldn't ask your parents. They might find that a bit more difficult. You want somebody who reads a lot, or even if you know another author, have another author look at it. But be brave, because when you've gone through this process and they've given back feedback on what they think, you will make very good changes to your story. Because a few people will suggest things and you think, crikey, why didn't I think of that? That's a really good idea. The feedback isn't them changing your story, you're changing it, but they're just giving you advice or tips that might make it better. Now, a couple of years ago, I went to a bookstore around Christmas time. I went in and the guy was, an author was there doing a book signing. The guy's name is Michael Naggs. He's a published author. Michael Naggs is 80 years of age. But Michael Naggs has become one of my best friends. Michael Naggs been really helpful to me. He read Unscrupulous when it was on maybe edit number 5. Obviously I'm at edit 10 now. But he gave me 2 pieces of advice that have massively improved my story, no question. In fact, I'd hate to think of what it would be like if I didn't have those changes in the book. He was very, very good. But I was very open to feedback. I was very positive about anything he would say. I know I'm not gonna sell 1 million books. I'm on a journey, and I want that journey to end in a great place. So if I can get advice from somebody who really knows what they're doing, I would be stupid not to take it. So that's what I'm saying to you guys out there. Once you get to the point where you think it's finished, don't just be dead proud of it and think, oh, I'm going to get it published and I'm just going to get it out there. Be brave and find people who will promise you, they will promise you that they will give you some constructive, quality feedback. They may say things that you don't even agree with. They may say things that you might even understand or think, that's not going to work. But you know what? I guarantee there'll be a couple of nuggets in there, and you'll dash back to your laptop and you'll start making some changes that you know are the right thing to do. Having your book read by somebody who's going to hopefully give you some ideas to improve it, it kind of takes you back to when you were at school and you're handing your homework in and hoping you get a really good mark off the teacher. And you're never going to forget what that felt like when you were at school. But now you're an adult, your homework might have taken you 2 hours one evening. Writing a book is a bigger job than that. So did I sleep great the night before I got my book back? I think I did, but I know my head hit the pillow and I was thinking, tomorrow could be a big day. So as I say, I'm putting it out there that you got to be brave. You got to be brave. You got to share your story. You got to get the feedback. Take it on the chin. You know, this is no big deal, although it'll feel like a big deal. But take it on the chin. Carefully assess exactly what everybody has said. And my money says you will find one or two things that you think, I really needed to know that. I've benefited a lot from finding that out. So good luck with that. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the novel I wrote, and there's a reason for this. There's a point to it. Wherever you set your story, you're going to need to know it's crucial you don't make any schoolboy mistakes in the story. You know, if it's a modern story and technology, which is changing every day, is not something you encompass in your story, and you go down a route that is incorrect, a reader's going to spot that and it's not going to look good. So you've got to feel comfortable with where you're going with this. You've got to feel comfortable with technology, how the world works. Don't make a silly mistake that the reader's going to possibly know more about than you do. You know, your credibility just gets bashed to pieces if you do that. So that was something that I was worried about. I'm not very techie, I'm not very up to date with things. I watched Breaking Bad 10 years after it came out. I was about 18 years behind with The Sopranos. Yellowstone was about 5 years behind with that. I'm not at the cutting edge of anything. So I decided to set my story 35 years ago, before social media, before mobile phones, in those great days when you could go somewhere, and if you not told somebody where you're going, they'd no idea where you were and they couldn't contact you. So for that reason, if people read my story and they are a similar age to me, maybe a little bit younger than me or older than me, they will remember that experience. They will know what it's like to leave your house one day, go into Manchester city centre, and no one knows where you are until you come home. So I've used those features in my book, you know, those elements of the story where people would just go off radar a little bit, nobody knew where they were, and all mayhem is going on in their absence. Everybody will remember that. So my book is set in a council estate, like quite a deprived area, quite a rough area. So I wanted to get, you know, to understand what the communities, what the culture like of those places is. So did a bit of research into that. So I tried to make it as authentic as I could, and I did research around the era. So if they were talking about music in the charts, or they were talking about cars on the roads, or shops that were, you know, on the high street, I made sure that the names of those places were relevant to the era. And research can be really exciting and really fun. It can be a fun part of your story, but it's also, as I say, a part that if you don't do it correctly, if you make any silly schoolboy mistakes, it can look really bad, because somebody reading your book might know a lot more about that than you do. So don't make that error. You know, the planning, the research is very important, and it can be a lot of fun as well. Neil Gaiman's masterclass, watch that. They'll give you some good advice. I took my family to Los Angeles a decade ago, to Disneyland, and I went on a roller coaster that was called the California Screaming. I mentioned that because by the time I finished my book, Unscrupulous, I think it kind of unfolds in the way that roller coaster unfolds. Because generally speaking, a roller coaster is something you get in, you strap yourself in, it climbs you to the top of a big drop, and then it throws you off the edge, and you know, you go all around circles, you know, loop the loop. California Screaming is a roller coaster where you sit in and it's horizontal, and 3, 2, 1, and you go, and you are like a rocket, and it flies you off. So the beginning is really exciting, and then it kind of slows down a little bit, bit other things going on, and then it's got a really fast finish. So that's the way my book is kind of set. The prologue at the beginning is a fast-paced action. Gets the reader straight into the story, straight into the characters. You know a few people, you know the motivations, you know the flaws, and away you go. So fast start, then world build. As Neil Gaiman would say, build the world for the reader. Make sure the reader knows exactly where these guys live, the culture, the climate, what to be wary of, and what they're ultimately trying to achieve. And that, I believe, in my limited knowledge, those are the ingredients that will help to create narrative tension. Once the story twists, you've world build, you've given good characters with flaws, the characters, you share what's going on in their minds and how they're assessing things. I think that's the ingredients to having a good ending to your story. So, and who am I? Who am I to say this? There'll be people a lot more experienced than I am who will, who will probably explain that in far greater detail. But that's the advice I'd give you. You don't want a book where for the first 60 pages nothing much happens, because a lot of people these days don't stay with the story. They'll put a book away if they don't feel like it's grabbed them. So good fast start, California Screaming, Los Angeles Disneyland. Great theme park ride. I don't think a video like this can be concluded without, as in a story, a good ending, a good powerful way to just draw this advice to a conclusion. And what I'd say is, take great pride in what you put together. You own this, you've created this. This is your world, this is your imagination, and it's on paper. We can daydream on a train ride to Edinburgh, and that daydream will be forgotten before you get off the train. When you produce a story and you put your heart and soul into it, and you take your time over it, you've got to take pride in what you put together, because that book could be on a shelf, that could be on a shelf of a relative 2-3 generations further on from where you are now. Remember that, because what you're producing is absolutely magic. It's a joyful process. It's something to get lost in. It's something to get addicted to. It's something that I truly believe will enhance your well-being. It will enhance your mental well-being. It will give you a different dimension to all the things that fill your head. You can escape your inbox at work. You can escape the traffic and the queues on the highway. You can escape the problems in the community and people that commit the crime and people that just aren't very nice to other people. You can create something in your life that is truly magical and truly unique. And the more you put into that, the better it will be. The better story you'll produce. And who knows? You may do this once. You may do it 10 times. I thought this would be a one-off for me. I thought my storytelling would be unscrupulous, and I thought that would be it. Dip into something different, have a go, be creative, and then move on to something else. That's not going to be how it works. Writing will stay with me. If I don't do it as much as I do now, it will be part of my life for the rest of my days. And my kids too. I know my kids are interested in things like this. So maybe passing on something positive to other people. But how many things in life do we have a passion for? How many things in life do we have, something that makes us feel inspired? Of course, there's lots of things, but this will be an addition. This will be something different and something more special and something quite unique. So I want you to enjoy it. If anybody wishes to contact me after this video, my email address will be on screen. I did say I wasn't going to come on here and try and sell a book, but if anybody wants to read Unscrupulous, it'll be available on Apple Kindle books. My name is Charlie Red, that's my pen name. I've not been able to use my real name because of my employer. It was more important that I stay a bit more anonymous. But listen, thank you for watching, thank you for listening if you're still here. And drop me a line via email or anything you wish if you want to get in touch. Okay, I've decided to be honest. I'm going to put a few little bloopers at the end of this video so you can see where it all went wrong. I thought filming this would be really easy and really straightforward, and I've made a lot of fuck-ups, if I'm honest with you. So enjoy what I'm gonna put up after this, and I'll have a chuckle at my expense. An engaging. Fuck. I tell you what, I thought this was gonna be easy, man. Give myself a few hours to do this, and I thought it'd be done in like 90 minutes. How do newsreaders do this shit? Without question, I'd say, find the right place to write. Don't give yourself something to do that is. Don't give something to do. Maybe we could put some music onto this thing. Maybe we could just Bit of background, a bit of music, you know. Yeah. I'll find another song. Hey, United have just scored.